Four, three. How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. I'm bringing a really special show to you today. Everybody that's listening, let us know that you can hear us by signing off in the chat. Let us know what part of the country you're coming from. I know it's a long day at work. People getting ready to roll into the holidays, so I appreciate everybody for being here. What we're going to talk about is something that's really, really important because normally this time of the year is where people start kind of getting off track of their fitness goals, their health goals, their lifestyle goals, and they kind of start giving it up to the holidays. And then what happens is top of the year, they start that cycle all over again. And what normally happens is most people just go through the cycle for the remainder of their life until they leave the planet. The reason why we're bringing Amber here from Fit for Show is she's going to try to give you some help and give you some understanding of how you can get through these holidays. You don't fall victim to a lot of your food cravings. You don't get off your diet. You don't get off your lifestyle, healthy habits to put yourself in a position where when you go into 2023, you're hitting the ground running and you're able to continue to keep hitting your goals and building up off that platform. And so that's what we want to talk about today. I think this is going to be really, really beneficial because we know a lot of people get off track during the holidays. We're getting ready to go into Thanksgiving. We're going into Christmas. We're also going into New Year. You get a lot of food consumption, especially a lot of alcohol consumption, which can totally throw you off whack. So that's what we're going to bring forward. Hope you get a lot of enjoyment from it. And let us kind of know what you think in the comments. Amber, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. And yourself?
Doing great, doing great. So I appreciate having you on. So really quickly, for the people that may not be familiar with you, even though you're not a stranger to the platform, can you give us a little bit of information on your brief background and kind of what got you into the health and fitness space?
Absolutely. So early on in my career, I went into corporate comms and I did that for many years. And then one day I hit the highest weight of my life. I had the achy pain, achy joints, pain, and all of the above. And it was at that point that I decided, you know what? I got to make a change because I can't keep living like this. So long story short, probably about, I think 2015 was that year for me. I made that decision to lose weight, lost about 40 pounds, enjoyed the journey so much that I said, you know what? Corporate comms is not for me anymore. I've got to make a change in my career as well. So went back to school, got my master's degree in exercise science nutrition, became a personal trainer and a sports nutritionist at that point in my life. And today I am now actually doing project management for a weight loss company, as well as doing my own vodcast on the side, which is all about health and wellness. So that's my abbreviated version of my journey and how I got here.
Okay. Appreciate it. So let me ask you real quick before we get started. Like, what's maybe the number one thing, or maybe what do you really enjoy about helping people hit their health and fitness goals?
You know, I think one of the things that I love about it the most is how much making that change for myself changed my life a lot. And so I know there are a lot of people who are prisoners in their own bodies because their bodies have given up on them, and you don't know what you don't know. So if you've never known how to eat the right way or how to engage in certain, I think, wellness activities, you end up falling victim to those same things as you grow older. And so I think what I like the most about this field of work is that I'm able to give people information and knowledge that they may not know otherwise, so that they can transform their own lives, live good and happy, and hopefully long lives from those changes. So I think that's what I like about it the most, because suffering through your life is not something that any of us should want. And I know I don't want it for myself, and I certainly don't want it for other people.
Okay, and I'm glad you was able to say that. I really appreciate having you on because one thing we do on this channel is we spend a lot of time talking about finances and how to make more money and things of that nature. But we understand that, your health is really more important, because if you don't have your health, then you can't go make the money. And so I want people really to lock in on how important being healthy is and having a good state of mind and really making sure that you're hitting your goals health-wise, so we can continue to be prosperous and continue to make more and more money and our health doesn't become an impediment.
Yeah. And I mean, I would add to that too. We really can't afford not to be well, because healthcare in this country is extremely expensive. And if you get to that point where you start getting sick, the cost of that is astronomical. And it's getting worse by the year, I think. So another little reason why it's important to take care of your health.
Definitely. So let me go ahead and let's start breaking this down. So we're getting ready to go into the holiday season. We know that once you live past a certain age inside this country, you kind of know what to expect. They pretty much roll out the same promotions year after year. So you kind of start seeing it. You go into the stores now, you're seeing everything already starting to get rolled out. They now start after Halloween. They
Yep.
used to, when I was growing up, start after Thanksgiving. Now they starting right after Halloween. They got everything already laid out. So you pretty much know the routine growing up in this country. What are going to be some of the challenges that people face around holidays in regards to their health and fitness goals?
Absolutely. So, a few things in that question right there. So, number one, and this is a point that a lot of people don't think about, what you believe in and what you think about a good portion of the time will eventually harden into fact. So over the years, we've been programmed to believe that the holidays are a gluttonous time. But I'm going to ask you this. Do you not have equal access to calories 365 days a year? Just because we're at the holidays doesn't mean that you have access to more calories. If you're eating a Big Mac on June the 3rd, that's still the same number of calories that you're going to get when you go to your grandmother's house. So we've programmed people to believe that there are large dinners at Christmas time, at Thanksgiving time, during Hanukkah. And so because we enter the holiday with that mindset, we automatically think we've got to fill our plates, we've got to finish our meals and so forth. So that's one thing. A person who has already, I would say, refined their habits will not have an issue going into the holiday. Like I've been at this now since 2015 because I know about eating in moderation. I go into the holidays. One, I eat what I want. Two, I do it in moderation, which means that if you like turkey, eat it. If you like the greens, eat it. Whatever it is that you enjoy, eat it. Just do it mindfully. Yes, even if you like the alcohol, drink it, but always do it in a mindful manner, which takes me to the second part of your question. You were asking, what can we do to prepare for these things? Well, just like you said, preparation is the key. So when I go to a family member's house, knowing that there's going to be an entire spread of food, one, I don't deny myself to have it. But two, when I go to the makeshift buffet, if you will,
Yeah.
I don't get a big plate. I get a saucer or sort of like a smaller portion. And I fill that plate, till it's full to allow myself to have what I want, but I'm doing it in moderation. Two, because that's not the only key. The second thing that I'm doing is that I'm eating slowly. It takes your brain a little time to communicate that it's full. So if you're eating really, really fast, you blow right past that communication that your brain is giving you. Thus, you end up overeating. But if you eat slowly and mindfully, eventually your brain is going to catch up and it's going to say, hey, I'm full. So even if you wanted to eat everything on the spread, your stomach is not going to allow you to do that. And we sort of live in a society where everything is fast. Nobody is really taking their time to eat. So I always say, if you want to really put it into practice, when you're eating, give yourself like 10 chews per food. So if I take that piece of turkey, I'm going to chew on it like 10 to 15 times before I swallow it. That's naturally going to slow me down. And at the same time, I'm still enjoying the food on my plate. I'm still getting to eat what everybody else is eating, but I'm doing it in a slow and moderate way. The other thing I often do, and I actually don't do this next part at the holidays, I do it when I go to restaurants. If I see something that I like, I put the portion that I'm going to eat on my plate, I put the rest in a to-go bag. You can always eat it later. And there's no rule that says you can't eat this later. You must eat all of this in one sitting. There's like no rule. It's like this invisible thing that we've created that I got to clean up the whole buffet. I got to eat everything. You don't have to. So put what you want on a small saucer, eat slow. Three, take the rest home. So automatically pack it away. Hopefully nobody takes your to-go bag and you can eat the rest later. Same thing with your alcohol. Just say, hey, if I'm going to have a drink, I'm going to have this many. Put it to the side. Sometimes it gets a little out of control depending on your surroundings. But if you set those plans in place before the holiday, you're less likely to fall off plan. Now, some of us still might fall off plan. However, if you plan for it, you're less likely. And then I also want to remind people that ditch the all or nothing mentality. We tend to think that if I screw up on this first meal, then the rest of the day is shot. And that's not the case. So if you overeat at lunchtime, just reset and come back into dinner time, back on the plan that you designated for yourself. So just because you screwed up Tuesday doesn't mean that Wednesday is a loss. There is no such thing as all or nothing. Ditch the all or nothing thinking.
Okay, and I really appreciate that. Let me ask you a question though, because especially from a lot of, like we say, Southern households, I don't know how they do things up north.
Yeah.
The holidays is kind of like you go over there mid-afternoon and there's so much food that people are eating like the whole day. They're eating,
Yeah.
because people show up, like, let's say I may get over there at 3 o'clock. Somebody else might come over at 6 o'clock. It's still food there. Somebody else might
Mhm.
be getting off work. They show up at 7. It's still food. So for the people that show up early when dinner's first getting served, but they want to do moderation, what do they do once they've had their plate of food? What are they supposed to do the rest of the day? Watch the Lions and the Bears play? Like, what should they do the rest of the day?
So the rest of the day, well, first of all, still get your 3, 4 meals in throughout the day,
Okay.
but space your food out throughout the day. So you can eat smaller portions all throughout the day and then don't allow yourself to get hungry. And,
Okay.
and that's the biggest thing. If you allow yourself to get hungry, you're more likely to overeat, to overindulge, because that's when those cravings are going to kick in. You're gonna want to eat more. What a lot of people do on the holidays is because they know that big meal is coming up later throughout the day, they don't eat. They don't eat until much later in the day because they're waiting for grandma or
Yeah.
the aunt or whomever to finish cooking. And we all know that that meal is, well, I won't speak for everybody's family, but for a lot of families, that meal is not done at lunch. Sometimes it may not be done to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the evening. And so if you starve yourself all throughout the day, by the time it's finally served, you're going to overindulge because you actually have hormones in your body that kick in. So your body wants you to survive. So it actually produces hormones to force you to eat. So those cravings are not part of your imagination. That's actual real hormones in your body that are forcing you to eat because you're supposed to eat. So what I tell people is that if you're going to family's house, particularly like back when I was bodybuilding and I had to stay on plan, I used to eat before I went. I always used to have a little food in my stomach before I went to the family's house so that when I showed up, I wasn't hungry. Then, two, when I'm there, allow myself to nibble throughout the day. Okay. It's okay to have a little bit here, a little bit there. You can continue to eat. Just make sure you're doing a small portion. Like I said, get you a little saucer, get yourself a little portion, bring your own portion containers if you need to, so that you can eat throughout the day and don't deprive yourself. Because the more you deprive yourself, the more likely that you are going to overeat. So, like I said, don't show up hungry. Eat when you're supposed to eat. Don't deprive yourself.
Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about. We deal with a lot of food-based marketing around this time of the year. Because
Yes.
they're really, especially the grocery stores. This is their time of the year to sell a lot of food. And how would a person that's trying to stay on track, trying to stay on plan, how do they deal with all this food-based marketing that's not only telling them to buy this food, but telling them you should eat it? Because this is normally not
Yeah.
the type of food we normally eat any other time of the year. But this is the year we start thinking about the pecan pies and this, that, and the third. And it can throw us off track because really, and something I learned is that if you eat clean,
Yeah.
once you get outside of that, you start to feel weird because you're normally eating clean, but you're
Yes.
being marketed to eat this food because this is what you should do to kind of fall in line with the custom. So how should a person deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, preparation is key. If you
Okay.
enter the holidays with a plan in mind, again, you're less likely to fall off track. I put it to you this way. It's kind of like traveling on a trip. If you just get on your car and drive, who knows where you might land. But if you have a map and you map things out, you know what gas stations you're going to land at. More than likely, you're going to end up at the destination that you intended. So likewise, when it comes to your meals, understand, if you walk into the holidays knowing that you're being marketed to, knowing that people are putting messages on it, you're less likely to fall for that.
Right.
So if you have that in mind and you're not blind to that, just knowing is the key. Knowing is the key. Planning is the key. And then again, let's say you do like Little Debbie's, allow yourself to have a Little Debbie, but put it into your plan. So you can say, on Monday, I'm going to have my Little Debbie. On Tuesday, I'm going to do this. So there's nothing wrong with indulging from time to time, as long as it's part of your plan. It's when it's not a part of your plan that it kind of gets out of whack. Like me, I really love pecan candy, or some of y'all call them pralines. Love it, love it, love it. If I have one, I'm going to have 10. And I know that about myself. So because I know that about myself, I don't keep a bunch of them in my house. I might keep one in my house because I know where I'm most likely to trip up. So I tell people, one, you see the ads, decide what foods am I going to allow myself to have. 2, make a plan for it. And then 3, as long as you have those things laid out, when the holidays hit, you're likely to stay on track. And then, of course, back to the prior points, if you do fall off track, forget the all or nothing mentality, drop that, and then say, I'll just reset tomorrow. So always keep that idea that I can reset, I can start again if things don't go as planned.
Okay. Now, I'm getting ready to go out of town to see family next week. And 2 of the days that I'm going out are normally days that I work out.
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to do is figure out how I can catch a workout on one of those 3 days I'm gonna be out, because out of 2 of those 3 days are days that I normally work out. So I didn't want to miss the whole 3-day run and not get any workout in, because that's normally my routine. For a
Absolutely.
person that is
Mhm.
on a routine or on a schedule, how do they try to make sure that they hit those goals during the holidays when we know we traveling, we may be in a hotel room, things of that nature, and we don't really want to get off our work off routine because we understand that that routine and that structure is kind of what's keeping us in check.
Gotcha. So one of the big things that I try to remind people is that as long as you, and in fact, I was just talking to someone else about this the other day, as long as you have 2 legs with shoes on it, you can always get your workout in.
Okay.
So a number of things that you can do is, what time am I leaving? If you're leaving a little later in the day, get that workout in before you hit the road. If, however, you're leaving early in the day, sometimes you can, or like, let's say it's a long trip and you have to stop somewhere. Sometimes you have little places along your trip where you can stop, get yourself some movement in, and then continue your trip. Like, I know I go to, oftentimes when I'm going to my sister's house, we stop at Buc-ee's. Well,
Yeah.
Buc-ee's has gotten so big now that sometimes they have a walking trail. They have all of these things. There are a lot of people there, so you don't feel unsafe. I might stop, stretch my legs out for a half an hour before finishing the trip. Or you can push all the way through. And then when you get to your destination, plan for some type of movement, knowing that movement is the key. So don't worry about, I didn't get to lift weights today, I didn't get to do that. Just decide that I can do all of these things. I also keep like little bands in my bag. I don't know if you've seen those elastic bands.
Yeah.
I thought I might have one nearby, but I don't see one. But I keep those little bands in my trunk. So whenever I used to travel, I could do things like banded workouts, body weight exercises, and so forth. So think about things like push-ups and crunches, running. You can run around the block. If you're staying in a hotel, almost every single hotel you stay in is going to have some type of workout room. Even if it's minimal, it's still enough for you to feel, I think, fulfilled in your workout. The only person who might not feel fulfilled is like if you're a hardcore bodybuilder and
Yeah.
you just need heavy weights. And the other things that I've done is that I plan accordingly when I travel. So back when I used to be like serious into my workouts, I still work out, but not like I used to. I would call in advance and I would find out where the gyms were, because I had like a Planet Fitness Black card. I'd find the locations where I was going, and I actually would just go to the gym. So it's no different than going to the gym when I'm at home. I just have to find the right location. And if you don't have access to like a nationwide gym, a lot of times local gyms will allow you to drop in for a small fee. Sometimes it's like $5, $10. You usually can drop in and as a visitor or a guest in a lot of these locations. So that's one thing I also tell people to be mindful of is look up your location, figure out what gyms are available. Unless you're in the middle of nowhere, there's a really good chance you'll be able to find a gym that you can just go to as a guest for the day. And if they don't advertise it, call and ask, hey, can I show up as a guest? Can I do these things? If you're at a hotel, you're almost guaranteed that there's going to be some type of workout facility. And if not at your hotel, I've been known to go to the other hotels on the street and find the one who has the best gym and just pop in. So be mindful of those things. And then last but not least, know that you really don't need a gym. You can do body weight exercises in your room. YouTube is excellent. Figure out some easy things that you can do in your room and work out right then and there.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you said about being a member of a nationwide gym, because that is an advantage to where whatever city you hit, like the city I'm going to, they have the same gym that I'm a member of. So if I want to, I can definitely get into that gym, and I don't even have to come in as a guest. My membership allows me to go in pretty much any gym. That's one benefit of being a member of a nationwide chain where they have gyms in a lot of different markets, especially bigger cities. So that is a benefit. And I'm glad you talked about the hotel gyms, and also, like you say, worst case scenario, just get your workout in your room. We can do 100 body weight squats, so many push-ups, and just do a circuit of that for 30 minutes. And at least you got something that's better than nothing. And also, like you said, hitting the rest stations, hitting the Buc-ee's, walking around it. I forgot the name of the truck stop that they used to have.
Pilot or Love's truck.
Loves.
Mm-hmm.
Loves. Something like you said, where there's a lot of people, and just get some walking in.
Yep.
So you're not just not mobile during those times, because we know that sitting down a long period of time and not moving is not good for you anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
So, all movement counts. That's what I tell people.
Yeah,
all
definitely.
Movement counts.
Definitely the movement, especially for my people that are going to be taking plane trips. If you have to get up and walk the plane, just so you're not sitting down long periods of time in a low oxygen environment, that's really not good for you. That's not medical advice. It's just what I was told.
Absolutely. No, I concur,
Okay.
Things like, blood clots and everything else on those really long flights. So definitely something to be mindful of.
Yes, ma'am. So then, do you suggest using Thanksgiving or Christmas as like a cheat day? And I know you talked about moderation.
Mm-hmm.
As a cheat day and not worried about what is being consumed. And let me kind of give you some context of what I'm asking you.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't eat sweets, right? So only thing I eat sweet is maybe fruit,
mm-hmm.
or maybe like a carrot. But where I'm going to go, there's going to be a lot of sweets that are going to be made, even though I don't necessarily normally eat them for health reasons, right?
Yeah.
So should I use that as a cheat day to where say, well, okay, let's say I don't normally eat red meat, or I don't normally eat a lot of carbs, and say, well, I just forget about that this day because it's a holiday, and I go ahead and consume it? Or should I say, well, you know what, let me figure out how to still enjoy myself, but stay within my dietary restrictions?
So I'm on the fence on that.
Okay.
Certainly when I was in bodybuilding, we had what we would call refeed days, where I did have one day a week where I allowed myself to eat. But I hesitate calling it a cheat day, because when we say the word cheat, we do more than allow ourselves to have what we want. We have a tendency to go way overboard. Okay. And so I tell people, eat till you're satisfied. And usually satisfaction is right here. Overindulging is way up here. You can eat right here and be satisfied. So to that point, if I were still bodybuilding and I had a refeed day, if my refeed day fell on, I usually used to use the holiday day as my refeed day, because I'd get one day a week. So if you're someone who follows that pattern, then yes, use the holiday as your refeed day. Eat to satisfaction, not overindulgence. There's a clear difference there. And allow yourself to have something that you really want and you really enjoy. But again, I really hesitate calling it a cheat day, because the minute we say cheat, people go way out of bounds. They don't just go a little out of bounds, they go way out of bounds. Now, for me, the holidays don't always fall on a traditional day that I like to have my cheat. So for me, most of the time, I actually would eat inbounds and then save my cheat meal, for our refeed meal for a day that made more sense. So for me, I'm actually not a huge holiday food person. I'm actually not big on turkey or any of those things, but I love a good ribeye. I'm not going to get a ribeye at grandma's house. So me, I usually eat inbounds on those days, save my ribeye for the refeed day on the day that I choose. Because what I'm also finding too is that a lot of times the food that we have on the dinner table is not as bad as people think. Okay. Turkey is not a bad food. Greens, if you're eating it with collard greens, not a bad food. It doesn't become bad until, and I won't even say bad, it doesn't really start getting out of bounds until you start frying it, add a ton of butter to it and whatnot. So sometimes you actually can eat all the things you want inbounds just by preparing it differently. So when I would go to my family's house, let's say they were about to prepare something, they're about to put a stick of butter. I say, hey, put a little portion on the side for me. I'm still eating what you're eating, but my preparation is slightly different. So that's something too that I've done.
Okay, let me ask you about a cheat day. And this is something I've always wondered. When I do a cheat, I normally just do the one dinner meal. Yes. So normally my breakfast, my lunch is still consistent, but I usually change out the one dinner meal. Like I like chicken a lot, and I do like any kind of fried chicken to me tastes good. Mm-hmm. So I normally sometimes make my one dinner meal something that I normally wouldn't eat during the week. When people say cheat day, should it be the whole day, or should it just be the one meal during that day?
For me, it's always been the one meal.
Okay.
I don't do a whole day because I tend to think that's excessive. Because think about it. If your one cheat meal is like over 1,000 calories, imagine all 3 of your meals being that for the day. And now you've canceled out the work you've done for the whole week. So I'm like you, I focus on the one meal. I don't do it the entire day unless you intend to take that one meal and chop it up across 3 meals. But what's going to likely happen if you do a cheat day is that you're going to eat a huge meal for dinner, a huge meal for lunch, and a huge meal for breakfast. And it's just going to be so much that you won't be able to, get back what you gained the rest of the week. So I tend to keep it to one meal.
Okay. Let me ask you a question real quick, because we know that going to, especially down south, we always cook more than enough food.
Yes.
So let's say we're doing the moderation thing, but then when it's time to leave, we have the carry-on plate.
Yes.
So how much food should we take back home with us, knowing that this is sometimes not what we normally eat on a regular day-to-day basis? The food is going to be perishable, so it's not going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
So should we look to take food home, or should we say, okay, you know what, I'm going to eat within this parameter just because it's a holiday, and I'm going to leave it at somebody else's house so I don't carry it with me as I go home?
Typically, I do that. I eat,
Okay.
Within reason, enjoy my day and leave it there. But I also know that growing up in a Black family, sometimes you got folks who like, oh, baby, you got to take this food home. You got to take a plate. So if I'm going to take a plate home, one thing that you can do, because it is perishable, and to prevent yourself from forcing yourself to eat it that day, is just put it in the freezer.
Okay.
I actually prep my food for the whole week. And the first thing I do is I put it straight into the freezer so that I am not tempted to eat it all in that one sitting. That way you can continue to portion throughout the entire week. That food's not going to go bad because it's in the freezer. So that's what I would do. And if you're getting like that peer pressure, I also make my parameters clear to the people around me. It took a long time for me to train my family to understand what I was doing, what my mission was, and so forth. But after reiterating with them over and over and over again, eventually they got it. Like some of them still offer me bread, even though I'm intolerant to gluten. I'm not gluten-free because I want to be. I'm gluten-free because it actually makes me sick. But it has taken me years to program them to understand, please don't offer me that. So I do typically tell people when I am on a plan, like, thank you so much for the food. However, this is my mission and where I'm going, so I'm not going to be able to take that. And I think there are a lot of people who are always worried, what if I hurt somebody's feelings? And I would say sometimes you think you're hurting somebody's feelings, but you're really not. Just be honest with your journey and what it is that, you're trying to do. If you stand for something, people will eventually get behind you. And sometimes you got to say it 3, 4, 5, 20 times before they understand it. But eventually they will. And so, like I said, it's taken me years, but my family now understands Amber's on her health kick. And actually, it's not a kick for her. It's her lifestyle. Yeah. So sometimes they even ask me, hey, can I make something for you? And I had a family member made me some gluten-free gumbo one time, and I wasn't even expecting that. She just came along like, hey, I found the flour and I know that you're gluten-free. So since it don't taste much different, we just made the gumbo for everybody gluten-free. And I was like, oh, I really appreciate that. Wasn't expecting it. And then also by telling people you're helping them, some people don't want to get behind you, but if you just show them, like me, I don't debate with people and say, you need to eat this, you need to eat that. But sometimes I help them by just living my life and allowing them to see how I live my life. And I've gone on a really strong tangent, but I say all of that to say, in closing, when you go out to eat, yes, you can take the food home. What you don't plan to eat immediately, put in the freezer. Or 2, make it very clear to the people around you that this is the life I'm living. Thank you, but no thanks.
And I really appreciate that, because you kind of expressed how one, there's a solution to it and how to deal with the people around you, because a lot of times, like I said, you can feel a lot of peer pressure to overeat or to take food home and then not know what to do with it. And like you said, just by communicating to people like, hey, this is what I got going on. Like for me, I grew up in a family that eats a lot of sweets.
Yes.
So when I started communicating to them that I'm not eating sweets, they thought it was temporary. So then next year when I came back through and I was like, nah, I still don't eat sweets. Then they was like, okay, well, he's not this is not temporary. This is just what he's decided not to do. And I was
Mhm.
a person to where like all the pies, all the cakes, the ice cream, I ate it all, pound cake,
Mhm.
because I come from people that really know how to bake.
Yeah.
So I was raised around this. So once I decided I was going to stop, so I had to do the same thing. I had to be consistent with my communication around what I was and was not going to consume.
Yep.
And then that's the real, because my father doesn't eat meat,
Mhm.
and he's done it for so long. He now everybody knows, okay, when he goes to the holiday situation, he's just not going to eat meat. And it's just a consistency of him letting people know, well, I'm not doing this temporarily. This is a lifestyle change for me.
Yeah,
So
and
I'm
I
glad you
think
was able to communicate that.
yeah, and I think where people mess up a lot too is that because they don't communicate, people get offended because they don't understand why you're turning their food down.
Yeah.
And that's where some of the resentment comes from that some people experience. Personally, I've never experienced that resentment from other people when I don't eat their food, but part of it is they don't know your journey because you've never communicated it because you like to zoom into the house and then zoom out without telling everybody like, "Hey, I'm trying to lose weight." Um, so they don't know why you're turning it down. So communication is the key. Be clear, be concise with it, and no need to go on these elaborate, explanations. I'm not eating it because leave it at that.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing you can say to people, and you're not lying to people, but you just, if you don't want to put people all in your personal business, because sometimes you can have health reasons why you're not eating, just say, hey, I'm trying to get blessed this year and I'm just going to sacrifice this food item. And
Yes.
sometimes that's what you have to do because, some people that are in very much in the faith, they have fasts that they go on every year. And it
Yep.
means they got to cut certain foods out of their diet. So just tell people, hey, I'm trying to get blessed this year in this area of my life. And so I said, I'm going to cut this food item out so I can get the blessing. And I just want you to help me be consistent in that particular area.
Oh,
So
I love that.
sometimes you can do that without letting people know,
Mhm.
your personal business around where you may not eat, because you may be eating holiday at a friend's house or maybe some associate's house, and you may not want to put them in your personal business, but at the same time, you may not want to eat that food.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then for some of us, sometimes people offer us food, that food be nasty. So, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I feel you. Yeah, it all depends on where you eat. It depends on where you
Yeah.
eating at. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so now one thing we know about fitness, and I know you know this because you come out of the space,
Mhm.
that it sometimes can be for the people that are not heavily into it. It can be very seasonal.
Mhm.
And so, do you see this as a time of the year where people decrease their working out as opposed to maybe like the summer?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And it goes back to that same idea around food. We program ourselves to believe before the holidays even start that this is not a time for hard work.
Yeah.
So because we program ourselves to believe that, we grow up with that idea really etched in our brain. But I'm going to tell you this, my fitness versary is December 17th. That was when I decided, and I keep that day on my wall. That was the day I decided to get well back in 2015. I lost 20 pounds in the month of December because I decided that I was going to go against that train of thinking. And actually, it's easier during the holidays because a lot of us are off from work. It is a time of relaxation. It's actually easier to get into your routines during that time period than it is when you're working 5 days a week, you're working crazy amount of hours. With the exception, I know some people do work heavily in the holidays, but for the rest of us who don't, it's a really great time to get started. When it comes to habit building, some of the best times to get started on a routine are when you are not in your natural surroundings. So when you're traveling, when you're not at your house, when you're not at your job, those are great times to start a habit routine, to solidify it so that when you get home, it's already in place. Because one thing we know about habits is that once it solidifies, it's on automatic. You don't have to do nothing about it. So I always tell people some of the greatest times to get started on your routines are during the times of the year that things are not traditional, that are not like any other time. So I know, hey, I got 3 days off next week for the Thanksgiving holiday. That is a great time for me to get out of my house, go for a walk, leisure run. It doesn't have to be this hardcore thing. I was just talking to a running coach the other day, and he was telling me, people have this misconception that you just have to go hard or you got to go all in, when in reality, running starts with a walk. It
Yeah.
starts with just a 1 minute walk, and then it might progress to a 1 minute jog that progresses into 2 minutes of running. So to that end, folks, this is the right time of the year to start your wellness routines. It does not have to be all or nothing, so you don't have to be hardcore. All movement counts. So just getting off of your couch, especially if you're somebody who's never worked out, is better than nothing at all. So just think about those things. And then always tell people too, one habit begets another. So when I started, when I actually started losing weight because I started working out, I naturally wanted to make better health choices because those rely on some of the same habit routines. When I got my food in order, guess what? My finances got better because all of these habits are similar.
Yeah.
So if you start working out in one area, other things will naturally start to come into the fold, start to make sense. So to that end, start now. There's never going to be a better day, and you might as well get a jump on New Year's resolution. When everybody else is doing their New Year's resolutions, you can say, I already started. I'm already halfway there. So that when January comes along, again, you're not susceptible to that marketing because you've already made a decision to move forward.
Okay. I really appreciate that. Now let's talk about, and we talked about the traveler, but we know that during this time of the year, you got gang of holidays, you got a lot of parties. We include traveling, but even if you're not going to leave your area, you have a lot going on that can get you out of your routine.
Mm-hmm.
How does a person stay on their workout routine with all of this going on? And they may feel like, well, you know what? I need to kind of maybe compromise my routine to hit up these holidays because we're so ingrained to make sure that we participate in the holidays this time of the year.
Absolutely. So again, planning is the key. All movement counts. So maybe I have to go to the light display in the park. Well, while I'm at the light display, can I get 10,000 steps in? Can I measure that while I'm walking around the park? So it can be woven all throughout your day. We tend to think that a workout means I got to go to the gym. I have to be in this concentrated effort for 10 to 15 minutes. And also by planning, you can change your routine. So maybe you don't have a half an hour, but can you give me 5 minutes of HIIT, which is high intensity interval training, something that can still give you that intensity in less time. So you can still manage these things. It's all about the mindset. The mindset is the biggest, part of whether or not you're going to be able to do this. And if you make the plan prior to the holiday, when the holiday shows up, it's going to be easier for you. And last but not least, track it. I stay on plan more often than not when I give myself credit for the things that I've done. So if Monday I went out and I walked, I always put a check mark on something so that I can see the accumulation of my successes. Success breeds success. And it tells your brain, like, you know what? I actually can do this. See, I did walk on Monday. It is possible. And anytime you sort of open your brain up to the possibilities and you train yourself to understand that you can win, you will win. So I would say the biggest part out of all of this is the brain and how you're training it and how you're planning for it.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, because I know you lived in parts of the country that are not necessarily the South, but a little farther north.
Mm-hmm.
The farthest north I've ever lived is North Georgia, which is cold to me, but to other people, it's not cold at all.
Yeah.
How do people in other parts of the country, how would you suggest that how they look at working out this time of the year? Because they may feel like because of the weather conditions, I'm getting this suggestion. Like I said, we see it with the marketing, where I'm supposed to just hunker down in the house and just stay inside and wait until the cold breaks to work out. But what I've been doing the whole time is just eating and sitting still. Where, me being from Florida, it really don't get cold. So there's no suggestion that we should just sit in the house during the winter. We're moving around like, it's going to be, I'm going ready to go down south. It's going to be 75 degrees next week.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't get this suggestion that we should sit still and just hunker down and eat. And I'm trying to figure out, is a lot of that regional, and then it becomes cultural because it's what everybody around you was doing. How do you think somebody should deal with that and trying to incorporate their workouts into it?
That's a good one right there. I think I go back to all movement counts.
Okay.
Do you have to be outside to get your workout in? And then also I think those parts of the country also have other plans. One thing I know, when I was coaching and I had a lot of northern clients, a lot of them would go to the mall, to the store to get workouts in there. I know that might sound crazy to some folks, but think about it. Think about how big a mall is.
Yeah.
If you could start on one end of the mall to the other doing power walks and so forth, you're inside, so you're not cold, and you can take care of that. Especially if you live like in a big city, do you have stairs in your home? up and down the stairs, up and down the stairs. So you don't have to like be fully hunkered down, unless of course you're in the middle of a snowstorm. That might be different. But hey, you can always go outside and shovel the snow. So all of these things are ways that you can still get outside and be comfortable and still do those things. And I actually think that folks up north actually might get out more than us because we whine about the heat. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's still possible. Again, it's a mindset. It's about what ideas will you accept. I always tell people, look for the reason to do the opposite.
Okay.
If somebody tells you hunker down, what I challenge everybody to do is to look for the reason not to. What is the opposite of that? So if people give you 10 to 20 hurdles, find the solution for those 10 to 20 hurdles and plan it out accordingly. If you know it's going to be cold on Christmas, or it's going to be cold on Thanksgiving, or it's going to be cold during Kwanzaa, plan that out in advance. And I was so much better about that when I was doing bodybuilding. I never forget. I went on a business trip and I had to report into my coach, because I did have a coach at the time, and tell her like, hey, I couldn't do the plan today because, I was on this trip and so forth. And her response to me was, why do I care that you are on a trip? Could you not have planned accordingly? And I had to pause because I'm like, well, I don't have a microwave. I don't have this. She said, I don't care if you didn't have a microwave. You could have took your food with you. You could have carried it with you. She said, you could have taken that food and let it sit out, take it out at 5 a.m. Then by noon, it would have been thawed out. And then she goes, who told you had to eat hot food? And then she just went through all of these things. And I started going, you know what? I have been programmed to believe that I need all of these things when in reality, I don't.
Yeah.
I went to Las Vegas and packed 7 days worth of food when I was training for a competition once. And I ate all of my food while I was in Las Vegas, which a lot of people don't realize, Las Vegas is kind of a foodie city. They have all of these different restaurants. I left Vegas and I only ate out one time while I was in Vegas because I had my food with me. So preparation is the key. I know that sounds like a really hard line, but when you start to do that, it becomes automatic. So when I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone. Now, when I fall out the zone, then we have all of these things. But if you get to accustomed to planning and to finding the alternative, that will become the common practice for you all throughout your life, and not just during the holidays. It'll be the plan all throughout the year. So if I got to get on a plane on Tuesday, start thinking in reverse. I know when I go on the airport, I might get caught in the airport. How should I plan accordingly? I actually used to freeze my food before I go through security. As long as there's no ice in that bag, I can get through. On the other side of security, I take my hot cold bag and I fill it with ice at one of the restaurants. And then I would get on the plane. I have done that many times. And it's worked out wonderfully for me. Saved me a whole lot of money too. And, preparation at the end of the day is the key factor.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I think it's really important. You're talking about preparation. And I think one of the things that we see with a lot of people that are successful in whatever they're doing is there's a structure to what they're doing.
Yes.
And they operate within that structure that allows them to have success. And a lot of people, if they kind of run it like, well, how I feel today is how I'm going to do it, it can kind of lead to a lot of challenges becoming successful, because how you feel today may not allow you to become successful. But if you have a structure that's going to lead you to success and you just stick to it, you a lot of times can become successful because the structure allows you. So I think that's really, really important, especially when we talk about Vegas, because I've never been to Vegas, but I heard that food is very inexpensive there because they want you to spend all your money on the games.
Yep.
So food is real cheap. So you can eat a lot for the low because they wanted to spend all your money inside the casino. So it was really interesting that you took 7 days worth of food. You was able to stick to your diet in an area, Vegas, similar to Orlando, where they're just trying to sell you food all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the key. The preparation had to go beyond just the food.
Okay.
I had to think through every single step of the journey. So my first step was, okay, this is going to be a couple of hours flight. I don't want my 7 days worth of food to spoil. So I had to think through every step of the journey, how I'm going to keep my food fresh. Then when I get to the hotel, we take for granted that every hotel is going to have a freezer in it.
Yeah.
They didn't have one there. So I had to call the hotel in advance and have them put a refrigerator in my room so that it was ready for me when I got there. Okay. But I made every single last one of those calls before I got on the trip. And I never forget that when I got there with my friends, something happened at the hotel and room service was taking forever. And I even had a hot plate in my bag. Don't tell the hotel that. But I had a hot plate too. And so they were waiting on their room service. Room service took hours. And I just said, I'm going to warm this up a little bit. I ate my food right then and there, and they watched me eat. Yeah. So it's really about planning. And what I encourage people to do is this. We all know that we have different hangups. My hangups are not your hangups. We all have different ones. Get a piece of paper and write down every single hangup that you can think of. So if you love sweets, put that on the paper. Then write the alternative statement on the other side. That's an easy practice that you can do today. And dig really deep, because some of these hangups may not be on the surface. Okay. So like, I know, like if I don't eat in the morning and allow myself to get too hungry, I'm going to do this. So X plus Y equals Z. Map that out for yourself, then map out the alternatives, and then map out what do I need to do to make sure this, and this happens. And it might feel like a lot of work, but once you do it one time, you can replicate that plan over and over and over again.
Okay. And so we pretty much covered what we want to kind of talk about. And I want to make sure that everybody watches this video multiple times before we roll into next week, because we know for a lot of people, they're going to start getting going on this holiday circuit. But Amber, in closing, is there anything that you want to talk to our audience about, making sure that they don't fall victim to a lot of their food cravings, making sure they hit their goals, making sure that they plan out their schedule for how they're going to maintain their workout as we start going into this new year?
So the biggest thing I want people to know is that everything is figure outable. Okay. There is not a single issue that you might have that you cannot find an alternative solution for. It's about how far do you want to dig into it? How deep do you want to dive into it? So go into the holidays knowing that everything is figure outable. And if you adopt that mindset going into the holidays, you are going to be successful. And always know, you also don't have to conform to the idea that this is an impossibility, or I can't do this, I can't do that. Everything is possible with the appropriate and right kind of planning.
Okay. And really quickly, we know people want to make their plan, but what should they do if they start feeling like I'm being tempted to break it to do this?
So ditch the all or nothing thinking.
Okay.
Let's say you mess up today. It happens. It happens to even me, even when I have the best plans out there. Sometimes it just, because again, like I said before, your body actually makes hormones when it's in certain situations that make you hungry. That's not your imagination. There's a clear reason why some people have a lot more hunger pains than other people. All right. Yeah. So if you give in, always know that you can reset, so if I'm eating the candy today, hey, I messed up, but there's always tomorrow. Reset, re-prepare, and move forward again.
Okay. So we appreciate Amber being here. So what I want to really encourage you to do is connect with her on Instagram, Fit for Show, @Fit for Show. Also connect with her on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@Fit for Show. And Amber, for the people that are going to be reaching out to you or connecting with you on YouTube or Instagram, can you give them a heads up of kind of what you're going to be providing to them?
Absolutely. So for me, my main focus is giving people all the information they need to be mentally fit, physically fit, and spiritually fit. If you leave me a comment, I do my best to get back to nearly everybody. Okay. I am not taking private one-to-one clients right now, but I'm more than happy to give you advice, to point you in the right direction, and to kind of help you resolve some of the tiny issues that you might be dealing with.
Okay. So let me ask you a question real quick about weightlifting, just sidetrack before we get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
So I seen the pictures of you when you were competing, right?
Yeah.
How much volume were you doing on arms? Because for me, my arms, I don't know whether it's genetics. My arms have never gotten big, but no, I've never been a muscular person like that. I've always been in shape. So what type of volume were you doing? Because I don't know if a lot of people have seen that picture, but your arms were very big. What type of volume were you doing to get your arms to be that size at that time?
Gotcha. So back then, the splits I was doing is that I would work a different body part every day. Okay. So I usually worked arms about 1 day a week. But when I say a different body part every day, some people do full body workouts every day. I didn't do that. Instead, I'm doing let's say 5 to 6 different exercises just on arms that
Okay.
day. So I might be doing, depending on if well, let me take that back. A lot of times I'm doing like back and biceps together. So I'm
Okay.
doing 2 to 3 back exercises with 2 to 3 arm exercises once a week. I usually didn't work out arms more than once a week.
Mhm.
But again, biceps is on one day, triceps is on a different day. That's the way I did my workout. So let's say 2 days a week. And as far as volume, I used to do like 5 to 6 exercises in a workout, and then I
Okay.
would usually do about 8 to 10, excuse me, 8 to 10 reps, and 4 sets. So for those of you who are not familiar with like, exercises, a rep is the number of times that you do it. A set a set contains all the reps.
Yeah.
So one set, I might do 8 to 10 reps in one set, take 30 seconds to a minute off, then do another 8 to 10 reps in one set. So that's typically how I did it. And then the other part of it is too, we can't deny that genetics has a reason, is part of the reason why some people have more muscle than others.
Yeah.
Yes, working out matters and how much you do it. But if you don't have the genetics for it, you can work out just as much as me. We're not going to look the same.
Exactly.
Now that shouldn't deter anybody from working out. You might just have to work out more than the person who is genetically built that way. So for me, when I got into bodybuilding, I really wanted to be in that bikini category, which is like that first level. It's like a toned look, not too muscular.
Yeah.
But when I started working out, my body just didn't develop that way. And I
Yeah.
had to move up into the not physique, into the lost the name, fitness category.
Fitness category.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that was more the way my body was structured. And actually, if you go to nationals and you look at the people on the stage, Black women tend to be in the figure category.
Yeah.
Almost all of the winners are Black women. Why? Because our bodies are just naturally built that way.
Yeah.
And if you look at the bikini category, it's typically white women. Their bodies are typically built that way. It's just the way that genetically they lean. And I'm not saying that there are not any outliers, because I know somebody's going to say, well, I know some people are outliers, but I just have never been a really thin woman. So because of that, that's why I tend to think that I build muscle really fast.
Okay, that makes sense. So you were doing arms for how many sets per exercise?
I used to do about 4 sets, 8 to 10 reps for 4
Okay.
sets.
4 sets, 8 to 10 reps.
Mhm.
And then how many exercises just for arms during the that particular split?
So usually I used to pair biceps with my back exercises.
Okay.
So I used to do like 3 to 4 back exercises followed by 2 to 3 bicep exercises or variations. I might do curls, then a hammer curl, then like an extended curl, but doing different variations to hit that, bicep in different places. Then on, let's see, triceps, chest and triceps. So on chest day, I paired that with triceps. So I might do 2 to 3 chest exercises followed by 2 to 3 triceps. So technically I'm having 2 days
Okay.
of arm activity, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And then how many times a week were you hitting that split? So like you got each body part or body parts broken up into splits. Then how many times a week were you going through that particular routine? So like how did you
Yeah.
rotate the routine out?
Sure. So it kind of depends on what body part I'm focusing on. So like,
Okay.
during the bodybuilding season, if I'm starting to develop and I see, hey, my back is not developing, then
Okay.
I might have 2 back days during a week rather than one. But usually legs are the group that get more than one workout. So I might be doing, one day of chest and triceps, then shoulders, then back and biceps, then what did I forget? Legs, then another leg, and then I'm gonna take 2 days of rest. I always take 2 days of rest. So
Okay.
technically I'm working out 5 days a week. I'm gonna work each of those body parts one time, which leaves me with one additional day. So whatever body part I want to focus on, that's the one that I double up on. For me, it used to be legs, because your legs can take a lot.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
legs you can hit that repeatedly throughout the week. For your other body parts, you don't want to hit them too much because you need to allow your body to rest, because you actually build muscle when you're resting.
Okay.
When you're working out, you're actually creating micro tears in your muscle. And then when you rest, they rebuild themselves bigger. So one mistake that some people make is that they actually work out too much.
Okay.
And that is why they can't build muscle.
Yeah. You see that a lot of times you'll find is that you see this with a lot of athletes is that when they stop working out is when their athletic ability starts to move up because they're not fatigued.
Hmm.
And so we see with a lot of athletes is they overwork trying to get in shape. And what they're doing is they're trying to perform athletically, but they're fatigued. Sometimes you got to put the weights down, stop working out, and just perform. And so I 100% agree with you, especially as you get older, where you start needing more recovery. Because I think most people don't realize it's not the workout, it's the recovery.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
also what you eat. I tell people too, if you don't have like enough protein in your system, you can
Yeah.
work out all you want. If you don't have enough of what I call the building blocks in your system, it's not going to build muscle.
Okay.
So it's important to have the right building blocks in your system. Think of it like Legos. If you don't have the right Legos, how do you build your tower? So,
But do you believe really quickly that you can get the complete protein from vegan diet, or do you think that you need to incorporate some meat base into your diet?
so what I tell people, if you're vegan or vegetarian, eat the rainbow.
Okay.
So typically you're not getting complete proteins when you're vegan or when you're vegetarian. You're going to have some deficiencies there. But I think the biggest mistake people make is that because they don't have all of the aminos on their plate, people try to say protein is protein, but not really.
Yeah.
There are different amino acids in different proteins. When you eat meat, you're getting all of them. When you're eating plants, you don't get all of them. However, that doesn't mean you can't get all of them. You just have to pick out the different pieces to make sure that you get all of those proteins on your plate. And so the
Okay.
easiest way to do that is to what we call eat the rainbow, which means that have something orange, something green, something this, have all of those colors on your plate, and you're most likely, maybe not 100%, but you're most likely to get more of those amino acids on your plate if you do that. So I always tell people, don't be discouraged about being vegan. Just make sure that you're getting all of the amino acids on your plate. You just have to plan more.
Okay. Great information. Great information. All right. So want to really encourage you to reach out to Amber. She can really help you hit your health and fitness goals. She really knows her stuff. She got a great experience, great background, and she's really good at communicating that out to you in a way in which you can understand it and then you can go apply it. Let me know if you got any questions. Hit us up in the comments. This is David W. Williams with Amber. Y'all have a good, safe holiday. We'll talk to y'all later.